cook, 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 cook. Let's go!
Holy shit, we did it.
Hey, so I'm going to cut in here now to kind of explain what just happened besides, you know, shoot Edge Transit with M1 or whatever your controller is, and break down what actually was used. So small backstory, as most of you already know, Hefnd has a giant health pool, and his fight mechanically is normally climbing multiple floors until you get to the top where you get a big damage phase for his health bar to finish him off, but this is different. So instead of doing the entire fight for one phase, this is actually one floor and one phase, rather than multiple floors. Now this was technically doable pre-Final Shape, like 8, 9, 10 months ago or whatever, back when Banner of War was at full meme power, Golden Gun still could use kinetic surge mods, and of course typically you would use a Well of Radiance against Hefnd instead of just going up a floor. This is completely different. You go up a floor, you have no warlocks, and you just use your abilities and weapons from a range. So let's break this down now. First it'll be my POV, and then I'll talk about the Titans. The beginning of the fight is exactly the same. You get the chieftains to come out, and then you cap all 4 totems. But instead of staying on that bottom floor and fighting Hefnd there, you actually just climb up a level and do damage from there. You can only do this after you cap the totems, by the way. Otherwise, it'll say, like, turn back, joining allies, and I think the blights also burn you. Now, after that first part is done and you're going to get ready for damage, from my perspective, what I'm rocking is Warden's Law in my primary slot, although you can run whatever primary you want in this. Still Hunt in my energy slot. I don't think I need to explain why I'm running Still Hunt. And then in my heavy slot, I am running Edge Transit with Amius Assassin and Bait and Switch. We're also on Prismatic Hunter with Celestial Nighthawk as my armor piece, and because we are on Prismatic, when we pop our Transcendence, we get a 5% damage boost to our weapons to maximize our damage. In terms of abilities for my fragments and for the whole team, actually, I'm running Dust Field Grenade and then Smokes as my melee. The Dust Field is there to afflict a stasis debuff, specifically a darkness debuff on Hefnd. That way, Facet of Courage will proc to give our light abilities more damage, in this case, Celestial Nighthawk, Golden Gun, and then Twilight Arsenal. And the Smoke is there to weaken Hefnd to get that 15% weaken debuff on Hefnd for us to do more damage overall. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, why don't you just use a Warlock? Wouldn't that be better with Well and blah, blah, blah? Well, actually, no. First off, Hunters obviously outdamage Warlocks. I don't think I need to explain why that is. But also, Hunters can utilize weakening and stasis debuffing any boss multiple times in one phase, thanks to me having weakened Smokes and a Dust Field initially, but also then if I go Prismatic, I start getting those back, and I still have all my Smokes for more weakens, and I also get basically an Ignition Grenade and a stasis debuff through my grenade in Prismatic as well. Additionally, I also do have a Radiant Dodge, which will make us all Radiant for 10 seconds, and one of our Titans will be running Lumina, which is literally just straight up better than Well of Radiance, minus the defensive capabilities. There is one more fragment to mention for me specifically, and some of you may have already noticed this in my POV, and that's Facet of Command. You may notice that I hold off on throwing my melee and my grenade a little bit during the damage phase. This is because I want to shoot off some of my Edge Transit bullets before I throw these. That way, after I throw these, my cooldown is gone, and then as I'm shooting the rest of my Edge Transit shots, Facet of Command will proc and then give me an extra reload on my Edge Transit, thus cutting away the time where I would normally have to reload for my last 7 bullets or so of Edge Transit. Now moving on to Titans, real quick, I want to mention one thing with Twilight Arsenal first. Maybe some people thought this already, but I mentioned Weaken with my Smoke melee as the Hunter, but Twilight Arsenal also weakens. However, in our testing to try to maximize our damage, Twilight Arsenal on its own would only start the weaken effect on the 3rd axe, so that means the first 2 would still do standard white number damage, and that means we would lose quite a bit of damage because of this. So I ended up using my Smokes as the Hunter to try to weaken Hefnd's Vengeance initially, so that Twilight Arsenal on both the other Titans would do max damage, and that was very important because currently in this episode and this artifact, Twilight Arsenal is the best super in the game, assuming you have the class item with Star Eater scale. So the idea was, I initially weaken Hefnd's Vengeance, then Twilight Arsenal goes off, and then reprocs the weaken, making it last a little bit longer, and then midway through the damage phase or so, I would again reapply my Smoke on Hefnd to get that 15% debuff, and then finish him off from there. As for what the Titans used, the one you're seeing on screen, it was utilizing Edge Transit as their heavy, just like the rest of us, and then in the top slot, they were using Izanagi's Burden for the Hone to Edge shot with X3 Kinetic Surge in their boots. The reason why they're running Kinetic Surge instead of Void Surge for Edge Transit is because of the class item they're rocking. The class item in question is Eternal Warrior plus Star Eater scales, so not only are you buffing Twilight Arsenal with Star Eater scales, but because you're using a Void Super and Eternal Warrior, you're also buffing your Edge Transit with an X4 weapon surge that lasts a gigantic 30 seconds, surprisingly. So they're getting a damage buff on both their Nagi and their Edge Transit / Twilight Arsenal. And for the second Titan, he was utilizing Lumina to buff our damage with a 35% damage buff, hence not needing a Will of Radiance, and also using Edge Transit plus Twilight Arsenal like the other Titan. They were also running, I believe, a Void Sniper, the one from the Pale Heart, and all three of us were running Expanding Abyss from the Artifact. Additionally, you could also run Transference to get a little bit of bonus damage on your grenades and melee too. Overall, I think it's a good showcase to show that Prismatic is just as busted as everyone thinks it is. Twilight Arsenal is nuts after the buff. Golden Gun Hunters still crank damage, but are a little behind because of the artifact with Titans having Star Eaters and Expanding Abyss. But overall, the point is, we didn't need Warlocks. Yeah, you guys suck. I'm just kidding. I actually play Warlock quite a bit. I am actually enjoying Prismatic Arc Warlock with Syntheseps quite a bit, you know, with those cha-cha slides. It's pretty fun. Sorry, one last thing to add here. If you're going to be trying this out, just remember that currently Amius Assassin is bugged, or presumably bugged, where if you build stacks and you change basically anything on your character, you will lose those stacks. So if you're going into this, remember to have all your gear ready at the get-go and not try to, you know, put reserves on, then switch to resist, because you'll just screw yourself over. So just a little tip there. As for the builds, I will have my Hunter build down in the description below with a dim link. And while you're down there, you can also go for the other socials and follow there if you'd like. As for Titan, I will have a dedicated Twilight Arsenal DPS build going up on the channel here soon with the recent buff to the damage for Twilight Arsenal, so stay tuned for that if you're curious about Titan. Other than that, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to comment, you can leave Hefnd 1 phase as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.